Welcome to Pressure Point. I'm Ken Wotherspoon, your host, and our special guest on this program is the Reverend Dr. William S. Taylor, who is well known in British Columbia. He has been a missionary in India for 17 years. He has been the principal of Union College on the University of British Columbia campus and was the first principal of the Vancouver School of Theology. He's an author. He's a theologian. He's also an artist. He has actually been a friend of A.Y. Jackson. He has been influenced by the Group of Seven. And that's pretty much the focus of our program tonight. He has written a book. It came out about a year ago, and it's the title of the program tonight. It's titled Seeing the Mystery. And this book is just chock full of ideas and pictures around the person of Jesus Christ. First of all, welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
To our program. Good to have you here. Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you right off, why in the world did it take you so long to write this book? And I should say, why did you write the book? How did it come about?
Well, I guess there are two things about that. When I retired from the Vancouver School of Theology, someone gave a gift. And the gift was to be used for some purpose connected with the college. And the principal and I were to decide what it was. So I put up some ideas, and he plumped for this, collecting these slides.
Yes.
I was glad because that was my first choice.
Yes.
Yeah. That started it. I suppose it really went a lot further back, though, because I was interested in it, and I had been interested in it since the time I was a student, when I was with A.Y. Jackson in his studio. I didn't study under him. I just watched him.
Well, that would be studying, I guess, of a sort. What a privilege to just be
It was
with him.
great. It was great, yes. And then after I was in India, he kept in touch with me and wrote to me a couple of times. And I was green as could be so far as painting or pictures went. But he'd sometimes even ask my opinion, which, heaven help him, was a strange thing to do. So then we started in collecting these pictures of the life of Christ, and I found as we collected them that the pictures seemed to say things to people that very often passed over their head when they just were repeated in words.
Yes.
And so we went ahead, and now we have about 3,000.
It's around 3,000 pictures of Christ in one form or another over the ages. And where are the slides kept?
The slides are all kept in the library at the Vancouver School of Theology.
All right.
And they really belong to the library.
Okay. And the book depicts a written message around quite a selection of these slides. As I read the book, by the way, the book is available through the United Church Bookstore in Vancouver, one source. The idea of the Christ is uppermost. And by that I mean not just Jesus the man, but Jesus as Lord, the mixture of the divinity and the humanity of Christ interwoven through this.
The whole thing is built around that, yes.
Yeah. Would you say that is that may be one of the reasons for the book? Of course, as I read it, I can see that. But does an artist, does a painter have a special gift, or is given a special gift in terms of depicting something that is almost impossible to say in words?
I think so. I think so. And I think this book, now it interests me, the book, because I don't know of any other book just like it. There are other books that simply illustrate the stories of the Gospels. There are things of that sort, but none that really takes the pictures and, in a sense, uses the pictures to say what words try to say.
Yes.
And very often don't. It's very difficult. And I think when you get a picture like that the picture does two things. Well, to go back to an earlier time, I remember once standing beside one of the artists at an exhibition of his pictures. And in this case, they were largely marine pictures. And a man came up to him who was a yachtsman and said to him, "I can see every rope, block, tackle in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And the artist turned to me after he left and said, I haven't painted any of them. So I went up to the picture and took a look at it, and he hadn't painted any of them, but he'd painted the possibility of seeing them. You know?
Yes.
He'd painted just enough so that a person looking at it could see what his mind put into the picture,
All right.
as well as what the artist did.
So you have the
And I think the
engagement,
artist can do that, you know.
It's kind of a dialogue, isn't it?
It is a kind of a dialogue
engagement of
between the artist and the
and what the person carries within himself or herself, and then also what you're expecting to see. We want to see a number of these pictures,
Yeah.
and we'll start with the idea of the Christ, the light of the world, and you have a couple of them in your book that depicts, first of all, the light as we see it coming from beyond. That's, to me, I guess the traditional way of looking at it. But you have a fascinating one in there by Wesley,
Yeah.
light from the inside.
Yeah.
Did you say a word about that?
Yeah, Frank Wesley's an Indian Christian from India, and he's done quite a lot of pictures, and in this one he has the nativity picture.
Yes.
And the nativity picture is set in an ordinary Indian village, hut. I mean, as I remember, there's the Indian bed in the background that just has its wooden frame and then the cross strips of rope, which provided the mattress that they slept on. And in front is Mary sitting, as an Indian woman sits, with the plain sari, not the elaborate embroidered sari that you'd get in a well-to-do city person, but just the ordinary village sari, and holding the baby Jesus in her lap. And the interesting thing to me is that all the light in the picture comes from the baby.
Yes.
You can just see it sort of radiating out, you know, from the baby. And I haven't seen that in many others. I've seen 2 or 3 pictures from Europe that do that. But for me, it took a person from the new church in India.
Yes,
to really
to
make it
point
come
out
alive.
something that theologically is depicted in the Bible,
It's
certainly.
depicted in the Bible.
ways
I
where
mean, the Gospel of John talks about it.
Yeah, the light of the world coming from within the person. And then to stay with Wesley, you have this one of Christ. Look at this one of Christ and the rich young ruler. Can you say a word about that?
Well, it's, as you can see, it's not the kind of a picture that we'd ordinarily expect, we from the West, you know, that way. Because we see pictures of Christ and the rich young ruler where Christ is with a beard, probably, but is still a Western European. And so is the rich young ruler. But Wesley has taken the Indian tradition, and he's got the kind of eyes that you find in classical Indian pictures.
Yes, I can see that.
You know, and the kind of face, I just can't describe it too much otherwise, but no one would possibly mistake it for a person from Europe or from the West.
That gets us into the whole subject of the cultural descriptions that vary from culture to culture, and people, the artist shows a bias in some of these pictures, and I think you point that out without trying to answer all your questions. You certainly raised some questions. We have this one of is the artist's name Obin? O-B-I-N?
Yes, O-B-I-N.
Okay, Obin has this.
Yes,
Look at this one. Look at this picture and notice the figure of the white Judas at the table. Now, what's going on here?
That's a mural in the Episcopal Cathedral in Port-au-Prince, and it's a picture of the Last Supper, and all the disciples are Haitians, brown-skinned faces. But when the artist painted it, he tried to get someone that he thought would be a good Judas, and it was a white person.
Strong message.
It's a strong message of what he felt, you know.
Yes.
Whether one, you know, whether it's quite right to put that kind of thing into these pictures, I'm not sure. But he certainly made it very clear what they felt about white people.
When you're staying with the idea of people depicting the Christ from their own cultural setting, there's the Richard West is an American
An
Indian.
American Indian living in California.
And we have this picture of Christ shown as an Indian.
It's the one in the Garden of Gethsemane, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's where Christ is gone apart from the disciples, and he's kneeling and
That's
looking
right.
up, and it's clearly an Indian face and an Indian figure. I mean, a North American Indian face.
That's right.
North American Indian figure, isn't it? There's
That's right.
no question about that at all.
And obviously, for the people of that particular culture, depicts those kind of emotions that one feels around Gethsemane,
Yes.
but from their
Yes.
point of view. Now, I may not pick that up immediately, but there is that that depiction of the Christ, a universal figure. You say something in your book about the universal and the particular, the concreteness coming out of the abstract. And you say in your book that you have no problem with that two go
Not at
together.
all. Not at all. I mean, even take a thing like patriotism. Patriotism, you could say, is a universal kind of thing that everybody has, but you can't see or feel or know patriotism unless there's some concrete person being patriotic. You know, it's the kind of thing that has to be put.
Yes.
And I think for people like Richard West and others, you know, there has to be put in a figure that isn't a stranger and a foreigner to them, because Jesus doesn't come as a foreigner into a person's life.
No, and he arrives in very particular situations, actually, when, you know, if you're to speak of experiencing the Christ.
Yeah.
It's your particular moment.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's what this artist from Africa had in mind. I'm not sure whether we have the name of this one, but this black crown of thorns, this wood carving. What a fascinating,
it's a fascinating
picture
face.
of the head of Christ.
And yet, some people I've found are quite disturbed about it.
Oh, really?
Well, after showing the picture to groups, I've sometimes had someone say, "My Christ is not black."
All right.
Yeah, and of course her Christ or his Christ isn't black, but an African's Christ isn't white, because the white people are the ones who have all the wealth in the world. The white people are the ones who have the power. And Christ came, at least the African feels that Christ came not as one of the powerful in the country, but Christ came as one of the lowly and the humble. And they said, we're the lowly and the humble. We Africans are, the white aren't.
Yes.
So if Christ is pictured as an African, maybe that's truer to them than having him pictured as a white.
It's probably good for us too, just to pause a bit and look at a picture like that and just say, why? Yeah, why is that? Why would I find that disturbing?
And yet it sort of helps us to realize maybe that we've done exactly the same thing. I mean, Christ was a Hebrew. He was a Semitic. And
I remember my
we've
Sunday
made him into
school days.
European.
All right, I got a picture in mind. I don't know where
Yeah.
it comes from, but I see a white Jesus sitting on a hillside, surrounded by many cultural people.
Yeah.
But that's my Jesus. He's white.
And I've got a picture from an artist in South Africa which shows Mary, who's a white woman, holding a white baby in her lap. And all the children standing around are black Africans or dark-skinned Africans. And I've said to people sometimes, I wonder what they would feel if the woman had been an African, dark-skinned African, with a dark-skinned baby, and the children had been white children all standing around.
Of course. Ask
it would be
the
shocking.
question. Yeah.
But it's...
Get in the other person's shoes when you ask that question. Don't be too quick. Yeah. The crucifix is a form. As you're speaking, I'm thinking maybe that's why the Protestants went for the empty crucifix. We always said because to show the resurrected Christ. But let's look at these pictures of the crucifix. Here's one now, obviously by a native, Stanley Peters.
Yes.
The totem cross. What did you feel the first time you saw that one? And you have that one in your book, by the way.
I have it in the book, yes. I don't know, I felt two things, I think. I felt shock. I mean, theologically, for the meaning of it, I felt shock. And I felt delight at the kind of picture it was. It was clear, it was sharp, it was vivid. And then as I started thinking about it and beginning to sort of get to some of the symbolism in it, I began to think, maybe I'd better not form a hasty judgment. He's got an eye at the top and an eye in each wing of the eagle, and he's got an eye below, which represent the four corners of the earth, all focusing on the cross. And in the circle below, he's got, you can see a circle with four different colors, black, red, yellow, and white, representing the four major races of the earth, all gathered at the foot of the cross. And then having the Thunderbird on the cross, his comment was that we in the West put a lamb on the cross. You'll find that in cathedrals in Europe. You'll find the lamb on the cross, because in the New Testament we speak of Christ as the Lamb of God so often, you know. But as he said, we don't have any lamb in our culture.
No.
In the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see a lamb. We haven't anything of the sort. But for us, the Thunderbird is the intermediary between God and man. And therefore, where you put a lamb on the cross, we put a Thunderbird on the cross. I can see the point of it.
I see the connection now that when you describe it that way. And
I still
certainly
find it a little shocking, but I can see the reason for it.
Yeah. Have you had any experience in talking to native Christians regarding how they have taken it, like the concept of the totem?
Yeah.
Immediately gives you an identification with their culture, and then to see this crucifix. You had any experience?
Not very much, I haven't. A few days ago I was showing was I showing that picture? I may have been showing that picture, and certainly several others by other Indian artists, to a group at the School of Theology that included several native Indians. I didn't get any very definite reaction.
No. No, I just asked the
I'd like
question
to sit down and just sit and talk with them about it sometime.
Yeah, because identification is one way to get into art. I mean, if I'm in a gallery and I see something, it's what you said earlier, something the artist has communicated by suggestion, and then there's already the communication by suggestion within myself, and I'm gripped by something that's pulled toward that picture, and I start telling stories about the picture. Now, feminism and liberation theology, feminist theology has worked hard at identifying symbols. And a few years ago, there was the artist Edwina Sands,
I think, I'm not sure.
Is it Toronto?
Oh, she's living in New York now.
Okay, but it was in Toronto that the picture we have here, of the female Christ. What a surprise, the first time we saw that.
I think a lot of people were very shocked when they saw it.
Shocked was a more appropriate word. And it was part of the Easter celebration, a Good Friday celebration, in one of our United Churches in Toronto, and I remember the controversy around that. People attracted to it and said, yes, that's me, this is what it's all about. A woman on the cross, a woman crucifix, really. And there were others, I guess, who just found it very hard to stomach.
I know one woman who saw another similar one to that by a Canadian, and she said she just broke down and wept. It was the first time she'd ever really sort of seen herself in the picture, you know?
Yes. Well, let me move.
I think,
Well, I can understand. You see, there's the strength of a symbol.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit, and tell us a bit about this Indonesian crucifix. What a fascinating! I can't understand it.
Nor can I.
All right, that's not good enough, Bill.
It came to me from the World Council of Churches, and I've never seen the original, and I don't quite know what to make of it. To me, a lot of it looks more like silver filigree work. You know, it's just so delicate and so detailed, and the features, it's almost a flat image. You don't get much sense of depth in it at all.
Exaggerated profile.
And very exaggerated profile.
And flowing hair.
Flowing hair, and the eyes
circles
are
around about. A circle that would be, I can see the World Council of Churches getting excited about the circle behind the figure, but I don't know what those mean.
It doesn't to me either. It's one I'd like to talk with a good Indonesian Christian about.
Yes? But again, fascinating. Let's talk now about another kind of symbol that has come down through Christian art, and that's the symbol, the artist's work of the Madonna. And we have, first of all, Raphael's work, the traditional, the Sistine Madonna. And you see in here what you expect to see, don't you?
That's so well known. You know,
that's why you
everybody
expect to
knows
see
it, and everybody expects it. Yes, and they think almost that any other Madonna should be in the pattern of his.
All right.
You know,
peaceful, serenity.
Yeah.
Very motherly. Do you want to say a word about is that a traditional way of holding the child?
Very. Yeah. Okay. Unless the child is on the lap. If the child is held on the lap, otherwise in the arm, on almost all Western pictures, but not on pictures from Asia.
Okay, now I want to contrast that with this other one we have here of the Indian Mother Goddess, I think is the title of this one. You say something about that. The child's in a different place.
She holds the child the way an Indian woman would hold the child on her hip.
Oh, I see that.
If in India a woman picks up a child, the child automatically spreads his legs to go on either side of her hip as soon as it's picked up.
Oh,
it's just the customary way. They never carry them in their arms the way the Sistine Madonna does.
Okay, so there again,
so
it's,
that
it's an expected
for a person who comes from a Hindu background, this would be expected.
Yes.
Whereas the Sistine Madonna holding a child in her arm would be unexpected and would be strange, you know. And also this other figure, the Mother Goddess, is deliberately patterned on the figures in Hindu mythology of the dancing devas. Only they generally have more arms, so on.
Yes, 6 arms, I think you said.
So that I think a Hindu or someone like that looking at this would say immediately, oh, I know this, and then he'd say, no, I don't know it.
There's the surprise again.
There'd be familiarity and then surprise that it's different, and then I think he'd have to start and ask, why is it different?
All right.
So many things are the same. The Tiruvasi with the horseshoe of lights over the top is traditional, it's there. Mary's holding up her right hand, which is the traditional way of saying serenity and peace.
Yes.
But with the other hand, she's got the baby over her hip, which is quite different.
There's a touch of humor in surprise, isn't there? I want to ask you a bit about humor in art, generally, but then specifically in, well, 3 pictures we have here. I read somewhere that an artist takes a great deal of delight in putting something in a painting in which the central message may be going in one direction, and yet if you look carefully you'll find a humorous note that stands out, glares out at you, and go ahead and laugh at it. You don't have to get all hushed because you're standing in front of a religious painting, any more than we should miss Jesus' humor in one of the parables. Okay, now look at this one of Fabriano. I mean, look at it, the adoration of the Magi. There's some surprises there, but look at what the little baby is doing.
He's lovely. I love that picture just because of what the baby's doing. Should I comment about it?
Oh, please do.
Sitting on Mary's lap, and one of the wise men who ought to be from the east and therefore dark isn't. He's a European, but he's down on the ground in front of the baby, and he's got a bald head.
That's right.
Well, you know what the light does to a bald head. It just shines off it like indirect lighting. And the baby's reaching out his left hand. Now, if a baby reaches the right hand, that could be a blessing, particularly if he raises it. But he's not. He's reaching his left hand and feeling that bald head down there to see what it is that's so shiny.
Yeah.
It's so human and so natural.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It certainly brings laughter. I mean, there are many other aspects to the picture. The adoration is certainly there, and I would guess that is the the main feature.
Theme, yeah.
Now, here's a real surprise, and how did you come upon this one? But what is Jesus doing in this picture? Here's a Puritan Jesus in Puritan dress. Is this a replica of Jesus over a door? Is it, or something in Amsterdam?
Yes. It's in Amsterdam, and we went to the Good Shepherd.
Okay.
As the Good Shepherd. We went to the church, the English church, which is very interesting because it's under the control of the Dutch Reformed Church, but the ministers are all provided by the Church of Scotland. So they got a very good sort of ecumenical relationship there about that. And as I went up to the door of the church, I looked up. Now, most people weren't going in, weren't looking up. They were looking in the door just. I looked up and saw this carving in the niche up above, where Jesus is in a pilgrim hat,
Yes.
pilgrim jerkin or whatever it is,
Yes, a fairly
pilgrim
short
trousers,
Jesus.
a short Jesus. And that's the church that most of the Pilgrim Fathers came from, that came over in the Mayflower.
Okay.
They were in Holland to get away from persecution in England, and went across to England, and then from England in the Mayflower. I stood there looking up at that, just gawking with my mouth open, you know, and people bumped into me.
Well, I can see why, and I guess one of the messages that if you're going to enjoy the world and really understand everything around it is look up once in a while, Bill. Now,
Well,
take a look
this
at
is
this one.
worthwhile.
All we have time for is one more, and there's a lot of humor in this, although there's pathos too, but it's the Ecce Homo, behold the man, Ensor's picture. Tell us a little bit about this. We've got a minute or two to do this.
It's a picture which is sort of ridiculing and caricaturing, you know, the kind of professor, pedant, who wants to take everything to pieces and examines it as though it was taking an insect apart to study its anatomy. And here we've got Christ in the center with these two pedants, one on either side, looking at him in a sort of supercilious way, examining him. And the person in the middle, the artist put his own face on him.
Now that's a
Christ.
daring.
Oh, yes.
That's a daring act, if there is
But
one.
it was done quite a bit in the
Yes.
Middle Ages. Jure did it.
Thank you for pointing that out, because you know, if we can just transfer that to the present day, I mean, when anyone reads the Scripture and reads the words of Jesus, they are taking the place of Jesus in a way. When we do a religious drama, or if we enact Jesus on the stage, that's a far cry from an artist actually depicting his own face in the face of Christ. That's done quite a bit? Is it?
Well, I shouldn't say it's done quite a bit, but I know of 2 or 3 other instances where it's done too.
Yes.
And of course, Rembrandt put himself not actually in Christ on the cross, but he put himself as one of the people helping Christ down from the cross.
Oh, I
his
didn't know
pictures.
that.
Yeah. Someone said that they lived in a sort of a perpetual Oberammergau. They just felt they were a part of what had happened, you know, and we've lost that.
We have lost it. How do we regain that in the last few seconds here? By looking at art?
I think the art can help us, because words you can repeat 1,000 times, and after the 50th time they lose some of their meaning.
Yeah.
But a picture just hits you right in the face, and you've got to respond to it, you know.
Bill Taylor, thank you for being with us in Pressure Point and bringing us this work, one of a kind, this book that you can pick up at the United Church bookstore in any city, but here in Vancouver on 4th Avenue. No one picture can ever capture the full nature of Jesus. You've helped us tonight capturing some of the essence. Thanks. And thank you. And thank you for joining us on Pressure Point.